evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Khan here, your host on the New Art Capital channel, and tonight I'm going to be addressing essentially the light at the end of the tunnel. In the previous video, we talked a lot about the inefficiencies in the global monetary system, in our financial infrastructure, global financial infrastructure. It's been a long day, and essentially the issues around the economy as a whole, and how there's a lot of geopolitical issues involved as well, and it correlates. It's when it's there's a common saying that when it's a war happening, it's essentially a banker's war, and so that makes a lot of sense to me. At least I don't know about you guys. If you've been in this space for a long time, in the crypto or the finance space, then I'm sure you have way more experience than I do. But today, like I said, we're focusing on the light at the end of the tunnel. What can we do about this? So I already briefly touched about on what I'm doing, or what I kind of suggested for you guys to do. Essentially, stock up on essentials and find a way to financially gain from all this, because as the saying goes, never let a crisis go to waste, right? So anyway, let's dive right into it. And so I want to essentially be talking about all this doom and gloom, all these problems. Everybody's essentially talking about the problem. It's funny. I was at a con. It wasn't. Was it? It was basically kind of a conference, or more like we had the chief economist of the Reserve Bank of New Zealand come into the university, and I had a friend who was studying economics in university, a great friend of mine, and he brought me along to it, and we got to hear him talk and so forth. And what's funny is I noticed all the students, and they're knowledgeable, they know these things, but all the students in that class, they always asking about the problem. Oh, what happens if CPI goes out of control? What happens if inflation gets out of control? Interest rates go even higher. We can't afford things. And I remember I was the only one asking about what is the solution around these issues that have been addressed. I was the only one bringing up CBDCs and so forth, which was, to be fair on my end, a little bit bold, but it was fine. I mean, it's he's there, might as well ask him, right? And yeah, essentially there's all these problems. There's all these problems that people talk about, and everyone loves to complain and to go on and on and on about, oh, we're suffering, the people can't afford anything. And hey, it is a true problem. I experienced, maybe not that much, but I do experience a bit of that, right? Or at least I've seen people that go through this a lot harder uh, than the way I do. So then I dive a little deeper. So of course, when I got into crypto, which was about October 2022, and I didn't pay it, inflation and all that. Well, it did pick up, but I just never really noticed. But when I got curious, and the way I got curious is, I was in the bank at BNZ at the time, and it's funny because the customer came up to me. Don't worry, it's going somewhere. I know I'm. It sounds like I'm just kind of going all over the place, but it's going somewhere. I promise you. Remember an elderly customer came in and asked for essentially to send money. So he's asking me to transfer money to England, and I essentially told him, yeah, no problem. So it's going to take about roughly 5 to 10 working days. That's roughly the case, but it's not certain. So this is what we kind of had to go through in the bank, and it's really surprising to me how kind of outdated and a little all over the place operating systems were. I don't think I can talk too much about this, but essentially, we just had to do a lot of navigation, and the technology seems very old, and it's just does not seem efficient at all. I Sometimes it takes a person a while to even navigate around it. I've known people working in there for 30, 40 plus years, and they still don't know some how to navigate some things. And of course, like that's not to say that there are specific areas in the bank that people will specifically work in, and they don't. And of course, they have every right to just not necessarily pay attention to the other things. But these are essentially frontline colleagues of mine, right? So essentially, we kind of had to know everything uh, around how the operating systems work. But like I said, I know many people working 20, 30, 40 plus years. They still don't know how to use some things because it's just that inefficient. They just don't like it. They use it once and they're like, nope, never using it again. But anyway, back to the story. And it's funny, he asked me, so after I told him it takes 5 to 10 working days, he asked me, really? Isn't that like sending a message? Like, why can't I send an email? And why is it that I send an email and it receives, this is what he said. And my friend can receive it in seconds, maybe minutes, but I can't send money that fast. I'm like, this is new age technology, right? And I go, oh, that's a very good point. So I actually had nothing to come back with. I didn't really know what I was supposed to say at that point. So that's what got me curious. And then my brother, well, that's actually the best friend that I was talking to you about. He brought me into a little bit. He brought me into the behind the curtains. That's the saying. He brought me behind the curtains and introduced me to crypto. And he essentially introduced me to Ripple and XRP. And at first, I already thought of crypto in general as fraud, scams, fake money, and some of it is true in that sense. But it's funny, he showed me a video. It wasn't anything that I'm about to show you today, but he showed me a video uh, of essentially all the all the partnerships that Ripple had been dealing with behind the scenes, and all the actions and steps that Ripple was taking to essentially evolve the cross-border payment market, which by the way is a giant market, and we'll dive into that later. And I instantly opened my mind. I thought, holy shit, this is essentially what Ripple is essentially solving what that client of mine was asking the other day. And I thought, okay, shit, how big is this? What, what do I need to look into? So I delve a little deeper. And if we just jump on my laptop here, so this is from the Ripple website. Settlement in seconds, not days. Now, Ripple, if you guys have been around the space for a long time around finance, crypto, you probably know about Ripple and XRP and what essentially Ripple as a company does and what XRP as a currency and asset, crypto asset does. They're two separate things. They're not the same thing. Ripple doesn't own XRP. XRP is a decentralized, separate uh, asset, essentially cryptocurrency, like Bitcoin, like um, Ethereum. But I have some doubts around Ethereum. I've been in the space for a little while, so I've done my research, and but hey, like, I could be missing some things. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. But essentially, if we look into this document, it explains how using XRP works for banks, for financial institutions to settle instantly. I mean, it's in the headlines, it's in the articles. I mean, not the headlines, but it's just in the at the beginning of the article. And if we just jump into the video, I think video will be a lot better to explain this. You'll get a clear idea of what Ripple is doing with XRP. And by the way, cross border payments not the only thing Ripple's working on with XRP and the XRP ledger. So, but let's just dive into this video so you can get an understanding of how big this opportunity really is and how big Ripple could be with XRP. Let's check it out.
Blockchain technology can appear complicated. I'm here to show you it's not. Hi, I'm Pega Soltani, and I'm the head of payments product at Ripple. So, what I find fascinating is that trillions of dollars of value move across borders every year. By 2030, it's expected to reach 300 trillion. Despite this growth, global payments are often expensive, slow, prone to error. Fortunately, at Ripple, we're changing the way value moves around the world. We use blockchain technology and digital assets to enable faster, more affordable, and more transparent payments for both our customers and their customers.
Check this out.
Here's how it works. Let's say a business wants to send pounds from the UK to the Philippines. First, they request an FX quote on pricing and foreign exchange. The business receives the quote, approves it, and then submits payment instructions. A digital asset acts as a bridge currency moving from the UK to the Philippines. It is then converted to local currency through Ripple's global partner network. The recipient then receives the exact amount quoted to them in Philippine pesos in real time. It's that simple. And when you're ready to scale to new corridors, Ripple's global payout network provides access to key markets and currencies, including many that were traditionally difficult to reach. You can start transacting within as little as 3 weeks. And your payments will settle in seconds, not days. The future of finance is here.
Now, what's interesting here is she says that the future of finance is here, and I believe Ripple and XRP will play a massive role in being a part of it. Ripple and XRP is not the only thing. Okay, it's not the only thing I'm invested in. It's not the only thing that you should invest in. You should be diversified. But I want to kind of briefly bring up the future of finance and correlate it with this rumor that we hear a lot about the greatest transfer of wealth. And it's, to me, it's no longer a rumor. There's just so much activity going on and corruption going on in the financial markets, in the geopolitical issues, that just screams that there's a massive change coming. 2008 was a housing bubble. 2000 was a dot-com bubble, essentially the the start of the internet run, right? And of course, I think there was another financial crisis in the 1980s, and then we had the Great Depression in 1929, 1930. Now, I truly think this is going to be equal to, if not worse, than the 1929 crisis, because this is a bubble of everything. Look at the real estate market, the debt market, the credit card debts, the uh, what else? The trade issues as well. The countries dramatically dropping the dollar and doing and trading in their own currencies instead. It's just it's mind blowing what's going on, and this all but signals to me that there is a great transfer of wealth coming from the old system, from the old fiat funny money system to the new. And essentially, there have been many talks about a gold backed currency from the IMF, from other central banks around the world, and so forth. IMF is technically the central bank of central banks. Actually, no, sorry, the BIS have also been discussing it, but they are essentially the central bank of central banks, as well as the World Bank. But what I'm trying to say is, I think personally it's really happening, and I think Ripple is a big part of it. I really do. I mean, she said it herself. The cross-border payment markets is currently today. Well, I think this video was recorded last year, 2023, but it's probably currently around north of 150 trillion dollars today, and estimated to be 350 trillion by 2030. And I think that was a prediction from the World Economic Forum that's run by Klaus Schwab, which is a guy that, I guess, like I said, have you been in the space? A guy that we don't really like. But the thing is, the big guys don't lose. Okay, I have this I have this analogy that unfortunately to me it's true. I'm sure to you guys there's hope. There's always hope, definitely. But the way I see it is, Two people in an argument, and one is saying I'm right, and the other saying I'm right. But one of them has an AK-47 behind their back, so they can just shoot you and claim that they're right. So essentially, that's what the World Economic Forum is. But they've got nuclear arsenals, they've got military, they've got everything behind the media, blockchain, AI, all behind them. So that's how I see it. But anyway, that's a little bit more. We'll go with that. We'll go into that more in a different video. But today, I really want to just focus on the light, the essentially where the opportunity is to enrich yourself, potentially enrich yourself, and to capitalize on the greatest transfer of wealth in history that I think is playing out. So after hearing that, we now come to this article here, and this was just recently, by the way. Ripple joins the BIS task force for cross-border payments. This is huge, in my opinion, and and I think there are many others who are bullish on this, but depending on how you see it. But we already discussed the value, the current value of the cross-border payment markets, and then the future value of the cross-border payment markets, right? And if we just come down here, we see as part of the cross-border payments interoperability and extension task force, Ripple will work with other organizations, including Mastercard and SWIFT, in fulfilling BIS goal to enhance cross-border payments and meet the quantitative targets for cross-border payments endorsed by the G20. To that end, BIS will be working to improve access to payment systems, extend operating hours of payment systems, and create links between different payment systems, according to the report. BIS said that improvements to payment systems require global coordination and cooperation between stakeholders in both the public and private sectors. Now, what's interesting here is Ripple joins the task force of cross-border payments. And by the way, the BIS have mentioned Ripple and XRP in other PDF documents as well, which I have, but I don't like have it right in this video. We can look at that into another video. But essentially, what makes this interesting is this takes me back to ISO 222. And now a lot of people play ISO 222 off because it didn't drive the price up, it didn't pump anything. Now, yes, ISO 222 is not for that. Technically, ISO 222 is just an enhancement of the messaging layer of payments, which is what SWIFT does. And SWIFT, by the way, offers no settlement infrastructure, no settlement system. So, and I know this because I work in the bank, so I kind of know how some things work. Not everything, but most things, some things. But the reason it takes me back is, so we already know that ISO 222, the Ripple is a member, essentially one of the body members of the ISO 222 messaging standard, right? So we just scroll down, we'll find Ripple. So we'll find RippleNet right here, and then Ripple will be down here as well, right here. So that's where Ripple is. Now this takes me to this post by Anderson. Shout out to Anderson, great researcher in the space and the XRP community. And he essentially quoted what Bob Way was saying. Bob Way is a former employee at Ripple. And I want to touch into this. So Bob Way basically explains the huge impact that ISO 222 plays into this new monetary system. I'm not sure if I can add a lot of insight. I'm sure things have changed a lot, but just for clarity, ISO 222 is way bigger than what you think at first. It replaces the previous SWIFT standards, MT and MX, and adds a lot of other things. The reason this 222 transition is extremely helpful to Ripple's bank sales team is this means that every bank is required to implement new technology. Banks hate to change an already working process. Change can introduce new problems, which means bankers get fired. This is the number one reason most bank integrations don't happen. New system development is expensive, risky, mistakes can generate bank losses or fines. Bankers get fired. The person you are negotiating with must have product budget, development budget, and risk appetite. With a mandatory 222 change happening, the person you are negotiating with only needs to have product budget. Money for development has already been allocated elsewhere. Nobody gets fired for following a mandate. That makes the sale a much easier lift for Ripple. That being said, bank software sales is still a hard process, especially with the SEC lawsuit still adding FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt to the process. But even if banks wait for settlement, their 222 upgrade system becomes much easier for Ripple to integrate with them. The biggest impact is going to be that even smaller banks are going to be upgrading their systems. That creates a much larger pool of ODL compatible banks. Smaller banks get the most benefit from ODL. It lets them cut the larger correspondent banks out of their flow and costs. There are two important things to note here. I want you to note this. So, first we had the BIS, not this one, sorry. The BIS talking about, where was it here? Talking about the improvements to payment systems require global coordination and cooperation between stakeholders in both the public and the private sectors. So that's the BIS. And then Bob Way essentially explains the mandatory upgrade of the ISO 222 update, which means public or private banks, smaller banks, uh, SMBs, small, medium businesses, big businesses, have to update. It's a mandate for them to go with the new ISO 222 standards, and Ripple is at the center of that. Ripple and XRP. RippleNet is the messaging layer, but if you join the Ripple essentially cross-border solution, cross-border platform, payments platform, you're using ODL, you're using XRP. Therefore, the demand drives up. The demand drives up, and more and more XRP is required. That burns a lot of XRP. The more you use it, the more you transact in it. Ultimately, that leads to a high price. David Schwartz already mentioned that XRP doesn't necessarily need a higher price, but it needs a higher market cap, which leads to a higher price because it needs to provide that liquidity. Where does that get that liquidity from? Hello, it could be through ETFs. I don't really think we need ETF, but it could just be pure demand for using a utility-based token, a token that solves a real intrinsic, a real problem, essentially. $1 trillion problem. More than $1 trillion problem. Of course, I don't know. I don't think Ripple's gonna take all that $150 trillion market by storm. I don't think that's just not the case. It's like it's like saying Google's the only search engine in the world when we clearly know it's not. But it is the most used anyway. And David Schwartz has so many times correlated between the similarity between Ripple and kind of Google in a sense, which is, I guess it's just to make things a little easier to understand. But nonetheless, it's a mandate, and Ripple is at the center of this. And BIS is essentially the central bank of central banks. Where does that take us? You can talk about, oh, XRP is a centralized banker's coin. Look at the Bitcoin ETFs. What if BlackRock buys up the majority of Bitcoin? And so now they control most of the markets. And you people, you Bitcoin maxis, are screaming for it. You're advocating for it. BlackRock, take all my Bitcoin, make it go higher. I'm sorry, that's just. And by the way, if you look at the facts, Bitcoin has really no other utility to offer besides from being a store of value. It the transaction process is slow. Still not a lot of places are accepting Bitcoin. And by the way, I really want to make a difference in this. A distinction between this. Adopting Bitcoin and investing, buying Bitcoin is not the same thing. Yeah, some people use Bitcoin. Yeah, of course, they use Bitcoin to transact, but buying and holding Bitcoin is not adopting. Adopting is essentially having an asset and being able to use it for something, for utility base purpose. Please make that distinction. And by the way, five. Sorry about that, folks. My camera just died, so I'm going to be doing the rest of the video by just sharing my screen. And essentially, we still have a few documents to go over. I'm sorry, it's a bit of a longer video. I kind of went on a rant there a little bit, but I just really needed to clear that up. That uh, that essentially people saying that the world will transacting or accepting Bitcoin. Now, I could be wrong. Okay, I could be wrong. Even though Bitcoin is expensive, even though nobody in the world essentially had, a lot of people in the world can't even afford Bitcoin, or yeah, they can't even afford one Bitcoin. Right? It's very expensive. It's very slow, and the fees are pretty high, pretty darn high. Yeah, I could be wrong. There could be major updates. There could be major upgrades in the ledger, but in the systems around Bitcoin. But you have to look at the facts in the sense that it doesn't really offer any other real utility. The way that ETFs are going right now, and the way that BlackRock is buying up a lot majority of the Bitcoin, makes it more centralized, in my view. And with the ETFs available, I don't really that there was an interesting post that I saw from ITM Trading, which is essentially Lynette Zhang, who's big on gold and silver, and essentially big around the research of the Great Reset as we're in, and uh, and essentially the Great Transfer of Wealth that's currently playing out. And she mentioned something there interesting, not from her perspective, but I think from another banker or another executive's perspective. But we'll tap into that another time. And essentially, I'm not sure if ETFs are actually good for this, like especially if we're talking about crypto's purpose being a decentralized layer of finance that can bring about a level playing field. Then ETFs, I don't know if they're really good for it. I don't know if that's really decentralization if you have an ETF and you're letting a bunch of these big giant corporates in on essentially your bags, and maybe you get to pump it a little bit, but you also have to remember with the market, with the potential ease to play in market manipulation. Look at what they do with gold and silver. JP Morgan, they got fined big time for manipulating the prices of precious metals. I can show you that in another video, but we're already way overdue. But I also want to tap into so Ripple mentions the solution of essentially using XRP to settle in seconds, not days, but pennies, and its energy efficiency and so forth. Don't just take Ripple's word for it. Okay, there's been many institutions and many partnerships behind the scenes, and many work behind the scenes that that is just pointing that way. That is just really setting Ripple up for a clear path of adoption and utilization of Ripple's Ripple's platform that operates with XRP. Ripple doesn't own XRP. There's an escrow that Ripple doesn't own. They manage it. They don't own it. And XRP is a decentralized currency. It's not a security. That was already made clear in the case. It's not a security. So I don't know. Maybe there's some things I don't know, and I'm welcoming any sort of feedback, any kind of further insights into it. But you see, there's just so much behind Ripple and even XRP. I can't be. I can't. I would risk. I can't risk to not be in this space in general, as well as into XRP and Ripple. And it's not financial advice. You don't have to invest in XRP. I don't give a damn if you invest in XRP or not. I'm just sharing my opinion. I'm just sharing what my portfolio kind of looks like. I'll get into that at the end of this video. But look at this: Bank of America to partner with Ripple for ODL services after XRP lawsuit. And this is offer, I think, an interview with, well, essentially with Link2, who a Link2 executive, or director of member sales, Nick Burfato. I don't know if I'm saying that name correctly. Essentially, he is in Link2 offers private equity investment into Ripple as a company. So you can do that if you want at Link2 and invest into Ripple itself and not XRP. But essentially, he had a chat with Brad Garlinghouse, and Brad Garlinghouse reportedly said that Bank of America was actually waiting on the sidelines, and he said and quoted that Bank of America is keen to use ODL, which utilizes XRP, to gain a huge competitive advantage over the competitors, by using ODL Marketplace. Yeah, it's the same thing. So Brad is very, very bullish. And then not only that, there was a recent conference, a kind of Twitter conference that was held by, we had the global head of payments at Swift, we had head of digital assets at Citibank, and then we had head of payments products, Ripple, Pegah Soltani. These three in the same room together. We already established in the previous article of BIS Task Force, Ripple joining BIS Task Force, that all these entities, MasterCard, Swift, Ripple. Now it looks like, I mean, there's many behind it. Citi, I think even JP Morgan, maybe BlackRock has also talked a lot about this. They're in the same room. They're discussing the same, essentially, problems, and they're discussing the same solutions for it. I don't know what else to say. I mean, if that's not clear to you that these guys are even potentially working together, I don't know what else will tell you. I don't know what else to tell you. There's just so much behind Ripple and XRP that I can't really afford to miss it. I would regret missing it, even if I'm wrong, even if I'm 100% wrong. I've learned so much from this. I've learned so much from this journey, this process around investing, around intelligent investing. I've really grown as a person ever since I've delved into this space, crypto, blockchain, and so forth. And it's been it's been an honor and it's been a privilege. And then I also just want to bring one last thing. Again, I think this is an older document. If you've been in the space for a long time, you probably know about it. But I just want to reiterate this for those who already know. But this is from the World Bank, which is also technically Bank of Central Banks. And this document, I think, published in 2017 here, and essentially states the third group of fintech approaches to the de-risking issue consists of attempts to redefine the existing correspondent banking architecture, often by using cryptocurrencies as bridge assets. And it mentions a number of cryptos like Bitcoin and Ethereum, they call it Ether there, and other cryptocurrencies such as XRP specifically, or Lumens by Stellar, which is XLM. There was a small little mistake here that I have that I've noticed, which was in the document, which is the World Bank's document, claiming that Ripple's own XRP, which by the way Ripple does not own XRP. Ripple has a bit of XRP, but they don't own it. They don't operate on. Sorry, they don't control the ledger. They control very, very minimal. Like they only have a minimal amount of effect on the ledger. They can develop on it. Anybody can develop on it, and there's a few other institutions that actually develop on XRP without Ripple's essentially holding their hands, right? So guys, I think this is potentially one of the biggest opportunities of our lifetime. And like I said, it's not just Ripple and XRP. We'll dive into other assets that I'm personally invested in so that you can kind of get a clear idea of what I'm invested into. But I can share a little bit. So I have quite a few, not financial advice, but I have quite a few cryptos. I have about, I think, five assets that I'm currently invested in. And XRP is my biggest crypto holdings at the moment. But other things that I'll look into are XLM, XDC, which settles trade finance, HBAR, which deals in DeFi, gaming, and all sorts of other massive things are happening for Hedera and Algorand as well. So I'll dive into that in another video. Like I said, we're already way overdue for this video, and I'm sorry for that. I mostly because of me ranting, and but guys, this is huge. Oh, and not to forget, not to mention, I also have a bit in silver. I also am invested into real estate as well, rental property, and yeah, I'm looking to raise some capital with a rental property. Personally, I think rental properties are only good for capital raising. But yeah, that's just my thought process behind it, and that's essentially little insight into my portfolio, my investment portfolio. And of course, I'm developing businesses and I'm running this channel as well to have that cash flow. And yeah, I look to this has been, like I said, this has been an incredible journey. I'm getting prepared. I'm prepared financially now. I'm getting prepared physically. Getting prepared in terms of resources as well. That's something that I need to. That's why you need to make a lot of money in this, guys, because you need that money to buy stuff, to get resources, to get ready. I mean, billionaires are already building bunkers, for God's sake. I mean, whether that's true or not, I'm sure it's true. Yeah, that's crazy. So, anyway, to wrap things up, greatest transfer of wealth is here, and we're moving. Well, we're essentially moving from old system to the new monetary system. And for such a change to happen, the old system might need to be completely dismantled, which could explain the current state of the world around war, around financial collapse, banking crisis, and so forth. So, with that being said, welcome to the new world. Stay tuned, stay informed, and let's navigate this exciting journey together because, guys, I cannot wait. The next, between now and say the next 2, 3 years, is going to be really exciting for us. Really painful, maybe, but without pain, there's no progress. With that being said, don't forget to hit that subscribe. Sorry, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more updates on our essentially on our financial future. I'll be providing you updates on a regular weekly basis. Essentially, any big news coming up. And if you follow me on Instagram and Facebook, which will be down in the description below, you'll get more up to date updates of any big events that come out. And I'll essentially be on those platforms posting reports and snippets of those events, those reports, and so forth. Anyway, it's been a long night. I'll see you guys in the next video. Ciao, and take care.